The courtroom was silent as the young boy stood up, his small hands trembling as he pointed at the judge. "You're my mom," he said, his voice filled with a mix of hope and confusion. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge, a woman known for her strict and composed demeanor, suddenly froze. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked like she had seen a ghost. No one saw this coming. The boy, no older than 8, had been brought in as part of an ongoing custody case. He had been in and out of foster homes, searching for a family to call his own. But what he revealed that day was something no one expected, least of all the judge who had been assigned to his case. The air in the courtroom grew thick with tension. Spectators leaned forward, lawyers exchanged glances, and even the bailiff seemed caught off guard. Who was this boy? How did he know the judge? And most importantly, could his words be true? The judge's lips parted, but no words came out. Tears welled in her eyes as she prepared to speak. What she said next would change everything. The judge took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the boy's words had shaken her in a way nothing ever had before. Whispers filled the room as the people in the courtroom exchanged stunned glances. The attorneys, who had been focused on legal arguments just moments ago, now looked completely lost, unsure of how to proceed. The boy's social worker stood up, her expression tense. "Your Honor, I think there may have been a misunderstanding," she said hesitantly, glancing between the child and the judge. But the boy shook his head, his eyes locked onto the judge's face. "No, I know it's you," he insisted. "I remember." The judge swallowed hard. Her hands, normally steady as she passed down verdicts, trembled slightly as she gripped the edges of her bench. This wasn't possible. She had no children, at least, not that she knew of. And yet, something about the boy's face, the way he looked at her with those wide, searching eyes, sent a chill down her spine. She finally found her voice, but it was softer than usual. "Son, what do you mean?" she asked carefully. The boy took a step closer, and what he said next made the entire courtroom fall silent. The boy took another shaky breath, his small fingers clenching into fists. "I remember your voice," he said softly. "I remember you holding me." His words carried an innocence that made the weight of the moment even heavier. The judge felt her heart pounding in her chest. Her mind raced, searching for an explanation, for logic, but nothing made sense. The courtroom remained frozen, all eyes on them. The attorneys, usually quick to interject, stayed silent. Even the court reporter, who never missed a word, had stopped typing. The boy's social worker hesitated before stepping forward. "Your Honor, this child has been in foster care for as long as he can remember," she explained. "His records are complicated." The judge's eyes flickered with something. Was it recognition? A buried memory struggling to resurface. She had dedicated her life to the law, to serving justice, but now she found herself at the center of something deeply personal. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The boy's gaze didn't waver. "Michael," he said. A single tear slipped down his cheek. I think you're the mom who gave me away." Gasps filled the courtroom again. The judge's breath caught in her throat. Could this be true? The judge felt her throat tighten. She had spent years making life-changing decisions for others, but now she was the one caught in a moment that could change everything. She wanted to deny it, to tell the boy he was mistaken, but something deep inside her wouldn't let her. The way he looked at her, the pain in his eyes, felt too real. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, but the judge barely heard them. Her mind was racing, flashes of her past surfacing in fragments. A time long ago, a secret she had buried, a choice she had convinced herself was necessary. Could this be connected? She glanced at the social worker, who was flipping through a folder with shaking hands. The attorney assigned to the case leaned in, whispering urgently, but the judge barely processed the words. Michael stepped forward, his small frame tense with emotion. "You don't remember me, do you?" His voice cracked, filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. "I've been looking for you." Tears burned in the judge's eyes, but she blinked them away. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. If this was true, if this boy was who he claimed to be, then everything she thought she knew about her life was about to change forever. The judge opened her mouth to speak, but before she could respond, the social worker gasped. Her hands trembled as she held up a document from the file. "Your Honor, there's something you need to see," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The courtroom fell silent again as she hesitated, her eyes darting between the judge and Michael. The judge forced herself to look at the paper the social worker was holding. Her pulse quickened as she scanned the text. Then suddenly her breath caught. The name listed under biological mother wasn't hers. It was someone else's. Confusion clouded her mind. If she wasn't his mother, then why did he seem so sure? And why did she feel an unexplainable connection to him? Michael frowned, sensing the shift in energy. "But I know it's you," he insisted, his voice filled with desperation. "I remember your face. I remember your voice from when I was little." His small hands balled into fists, as if holding onto his last bit of hope. Then, as if a puzzle piece suddenly clicked into place, the judge's eyes widened in realization. There was another possibility, one even more shocking than what she had feared. She turned to the social worker, her voice unsteady. "Who is listed as his mother?" The answer that followed sent a collective gasp through the courtroom. The truth was even more complicated than anyone had imagined. The courtroom held its breath as the social worker hesitated before reading the name aloud. The judge's heart pounded in her chest, but when the words finally came, they hit her like a thunderbolt. The name wasn't hers, but it was someone she knew. Someone she never thought would be connected to this case. It was her younger sister. The room erupted in whispers. The judge's knees went weak, and she gripped the edge of her bench for support. Michael wasn't her son, he was her nephew. Her mind raced back to years ago when her sister had suddenly disappeared, cutting ties with the family. They had assumed she wanted a fresh start, but now the truth was unraveling before her. Michael's face twisted in confusion. "I don't understand," he said, shaking his head. "If you're not my mom, then where is she?" His voice cracked, his small frame trembling. The judge swallowed hard, emotions crashing over her. She had spent years upholding the law, but now she was facing a truth that couldn't be solved by legal codes or courtroom rules. She looked into Michael's pleading eyes, knowing she had a choice to make. The past had finally caught up with her, and what she did next would change both of their lives forever. The judge took a deep breath, steadying herself as she looked at Michael. She had spent years searching for justice for others, but now justice had found her in the most unexpected way. She knelt down, meeting Michael at eye level. "I don't know where your mother is," she admitted gently. "But I promise you this, you are not alone." Tears welled up in Michael's eyes, but for the first time, there was something else there, hope. The social worker stepped forward, flipping through the file. "Your Honor, given these new findings, we can begin a search for his mother immediately," she said. "But until then, he'll need a guardian." The judge didn't hesitate. "He has one," she said firmly. "Me." A wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Guests turned into quiet murmurs of admiration. Even the attorneys, who usually remained detached, exchanged glances of respect. Michael's lips quivered before he threw his arms around her, clinging tightly. The judge hugged him back, feeling something shift deep within her, a missing piece falling into place. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just delivering justice. She was choosing love. And in that moment, both of their lives changed forever.